only because like he retweeted like some tweets, thing that they wanted to do against him in the court. It was like forbidding him to be an imam like all his life. Now they also make an oral examination, and a lot of students and people are saying that they put that so they can see before accepting if the woman is wearing a veil or if the man is wearing a beard, etc. And you had a man called Gérald Darmanin, who was Minister of Interior, that he helped to shut it down, to shut down the organization.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Jazakallah khair for joining Sister Hurriya.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Very happy to be here.
Jazakallah khair. So Sister Hurriya, you're from Perspectives Musulmanes. We had another esteemed guest, Ahmed, before. So today we have you. Can you tell us what is your position with Perspectives Musulmanes?
So, Assalamu alaikum. First of all, very honored to be here with you. To clarify this, I'm not only with that group. I am where they need me, let's say.
Where justice needs.
Exactly. I work a lot with also Urgence Palestine that you know very well. Mm-hmm. And like in Perspectives Musulmanes, I'm with the sisters and we're trying to do our best to make our situation better, inshallah.
Alhamdulillah. So, Sister Hurriya, I think we all know what is happening in France for the forced, the government forces itself upon the communal space of Muslims. So can you tell us a little bit, a general idea of what is actually the state's position on Muslims? We know recently that they have tried to ban Muslim Brotherhood, although what it means they haven't really explained. So can you give us what is happening with the abaya ban and everything?
Yeah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So you're asking me a question. I could make a podcast like 4 hours answering you, but we'll try to make it short, inshallah. So what is interesting is when people think about this issue of Islamophobia state, Islamophobian state, let's say, of this French state, they think about the latest law and tend to forget that this phenomenon is really, really old and historical. We could go back to the colonizing roots of that state. We could go back to the history, but no need. We can only go back to the beginning of this century, so the 21st one. We think about the abaya, for example, the things that are in the newspapers, were in the newspapers lately. But you have one law that is very important, and even in the consciousness and the history of people in their mind, the Muslim people, is the 2004 law on hijab. Forbidding the hijab, wearing the hijab in schools, for the reason that you probably know, and the people are listening probably know also, that it's a public space, so they don't want visible signs of religion. So they say of religion, but obviously it was targeting specifically Muslim girls. So you have this law in 2004. We can talk more about this law if you want, but you also have other laws coming after this. For example, you have the law on niqab that we tend to forget, because you know that not all Muslim girls are concerned about wearing the niqab, hijab also, but it's more of a issue with differences, let's say. Mm-hmm. But it's still, even if you're wearing it or not wearing it, it's still an issue targeting, again, Muslim women. And so I think this law was 2010 or 13, I don't remember, but the beginning of 2010s. So this law is coming. So you have that atmosphere going on, growing up. And then you're arriving, and we mentioned it also you mentioned it with Ahmed, I remember, this law on separatism. So the separatism law that's coming in 2021, even if you have before that, around 2019, a lot of also an atmosphere really like dance on Islamophobia. And then so 2021 is also very important in the mind of people because you have a lot of mosques that are closed, associations. So like we also always quote Baraka City and the CCIF because like they were very big symbol for the community. But it's not only that. You also have people that have seen their accounts frozen. That's a measure that they use a lot because you don't need to go through the court. You don't need like to have proof. It's only the state, and more precisely, I think, is like the Minister of Economy that's saying, okay, we're freezing his account because he's kind of weird. Okay, so you see that in 2021 until then now. And also something we tend to forget also, just before the Olympics game, so that was 2024, right? You had some special measures going on just before the games where that was like arresting people, coming to their house like a raid, we can say, forcing them to stay in their home also, because they were kind of afraid of things that could happen during the Olympic Games. And of course, it was mainly targeting Muslim people. And we can talk about the abaya. We can talk about all the people like the imams also. We can talk about the imams that were they were taken to court. We can also talk about the Muslim people, and that's in general Muslim men that are activists talking about Palestine, that are also arrested. So yeah, as I said, I could talk about...
There's a lot of going on, yes. But here's my question. If so much oppression is happening with the Muslims, the crackdown on Muslims is pretty hard. I can see that. And this experience I've even experienced in the Jummah khutbahs, where hardly they talk about... I mean, there was one masjid that spoke about Palestine and the protest, but the other masajids that I went to, very much quiet. Like it was generally like, I know that I've heard, maybe you can clarify, that the imams are designated by the state. How true is that?
Oh, that's a very interesting topic. So you had, that's about the laws I could have quoted also, a thing that has been created. So to simplify this, during a lot of years, like this last decades, we saw the French state trying to control the religion. They say that they want to separate the religion from the state, right? But they try with all their efforts to control Islam and control its organization. So they, for example, created some groups or institutions that said this would represent the Muslims. Of course, there's no one Muslim that is feeling that he's been represented by these institutions because they've been created by the states. And within also these measures, there is a thing called like the Imam charts. The Imams chart. So that's a text they've written, and it's like listing the rules for the Imams. If you want to be an Imam, you have to sign it. And that would make you an Imam, French Republic friendly Imam. Okay. So we know that the Imams right now are one of the most targeting group within the Muslim community. And this explains largely why you don't see a lot of khutbahs or a lot of durus that are unfortunately talking about Palestine, because the fact that you are evoking a subject merely like it's a subject we see in the newspaper, but we have to say also it's a political subject. They directly make a link like, okay, political Islam. I wanted to say religion, but like Islam. It's not a problem if there's other religions talking about it, but when it is Islam, it's a problem. So you see there is a lot of pressure on mosques with like imam that like the state is, and the secret agencies are listening to the khutbahs very with a lot of attention. And so, for example, I can talk to you about like some imams that have been arrested and controlled. not only on the Palestinian subject, but like more generally. For example, Imam Ismail from Marseille, he had a lot of problems only because like he retweeted like some tweets, and within the thing that they wanted to do against him in the court, it was like forbidding him to be an imam like all his life. That's very, very disproportionate and like unjustified, of course. You also have Abdurrahman Ridwan, that was an imam. So it's not Bordeaux, but like a city around it. Also, because he openly talked about Palestine, he had problem with the justice. So that's what I'm like saying a lot to the Muslim people that are saying, oh, we don't talk about Palestine in the mosque, etc. We have to take into account that imams are not treated equally with the other people first in the community, and also with all the French people. They are targeted more specifically. If they talk, it can mean they are arrested. The mosques is arrested. Like it's the imam talking, but it's also the mosque that is closed. If the imams, that's another problem. Like have problem with administration, for example, when they're coming from abroad, they can be expelled. They can have a lot of problem with doing their French papers, etc. So yeah, that explains. Like there are all other reasons, but I think that's the main reason why you see this. Unfortunately, let's say issue. But I just want to finish on that. Yeah. There is also a lot of imams that are talking about it. You can say, okay, but they talk about it on a humanitarian base. They don't talk about like the resistance, etc. But at least they're talking about it. And we can see also some imams that are talking about the history coming back, like it has not begun in the 7th of October, etc. So, alhamdulillah, it's not like all black, let's say.
It's like what the state is trying to do is self-censoring the imams. Rather, if they push their limits, the state can either deport them, as you said, or expel them, or make their lives difficult. Now the question is, how does the state determine what is religious and non-religious? Like, if it is religiously justified that this is actually because France, at the end of the day, it's the land of the protest. Everybody knows that that's where every single day something is happening. So how do you determine that this is religiously justified? Because somebody has to, maybe just like the UK, I'm not sure about France, but maybe like the UK and the US, you have some certain groups that say that this is either extremism, or this is not extremism. So a lobby might be shaping that. So who is actually, do you know, is there a force that interprets these texts or these sermons, the khutbahs basically, as extreme or non-extreme?
Yeah. What I can say is that what is the expression? Like the rule of the game is like rigged from the beginning, let's say, because you have in front of you a state that is Islamophobic and racist in its whole nature and roots. So as long as you see something that is a manifestation of Islam in the public sphere and even in the private sphere, it's a problem. Even if I'm not talking about Palestine, even if I'm not talking about other subjects, as long as you're trying to live freely with your values, like you're not being like shy about your values, and you're like, if my deen is telling me I have to wear the hijab, I will wear it. My deen is telling me I have to pray 5 times a day, even if I'm like outside or I don't know, I will do it. My deen is telling me I don't, all the things you want to follow as a Muslim. Like, as long as you're trying to do this, they will see it as a problem. So if you're a Muslim, you are seen as a problem because you are carrying with you vision of society. It's not only like other religions that have been secularized. So like they don't, like the private and the public sphere are very separated. Like the Muslim people, because they always carry with them the value like of justice and some values that will go really against that system rooted like based on like capitalism, liberalism, etc. And it's like big defaults. as long as you're a Muslim, you are targeted.
Mhm.
So yeah, that can go like from a manifestation to another.
But even Palestine, for instance, it's mostly pioneered or like carried on by the left, and so what? If it's a liberal issue, then even the liberals are kind of like not a liberal issue. Rather, say even the liberals are what do you call in the same caravan. So why do they target? I mean, not why. How do they target particularly Muslims, the Imams? So that's my question. If it is a left or a human rights issue, which is a kind of we can put that in the same liberal box. So to silence or to interpret like okay, this Imam is being extreme, calling for justice or calling for that. Somebody has to say that this is actually an extremist view. Like just like you take in the UK, like Sami Hamdi was arrested recently, and that was through Laura Loomer or like other organizations. So that's what I'm trying to ask you. Like, are there organizations, foreign or internal, that push these what do you call it, barriers?
So if you're talking about Palestine, like that's a well-known fact that the French system is an ally of the Israeli state that is doing what it is doing in Palestine. And I'm not talking only talking about this awful genocide that we're seeing since the 8th of October. And I'm talking about these years and these years of colonization. We know it for a fact through the selling of weapons, through like, I think you know the well-known phrase of one political woman. Yeah, she was part of the government, I think. Yeah, that she said Israel will have an unconditional support from France, unconditional support. And like she, like 1 year after that, I think she like quietly came back on that word, but like very quietly. So like they are big allies with the Israeli state, and that's a well-known fact. So of course they one is pushing the agenda of the other, and like what is very interesting is like they say you must not import the conflict. You know, they say, French people must not talk about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict because we must not import the conflict. But as soon as you're selling weapons to that state that have been criminalized by the ICG, we say in English, right? And etc. and etc. Amnesty International, of course, you are taking a stand. A clear stand. So of course we're going to talk about it and we're going to denounce it. Now, I have one of our professors is using the sentence sometimes coloniality and solidarity, saying that in the movement of support and solidarity for Palestine, some people can do things that others cannot, unfortunately. And I'm joining the point you were making on leftists. So unfortunately, in the organized group, the leftist groups in general, I'm making a very general consideration right now, are more listened to. You will hear more about them in the media if they invite someone, for example. And yet, when you go in the demonstration in the streets, for example, you will see Muslim people. That's our mothers and sisters and fathers and brothers that are walking, you know, and like giving money, etc.
That was like a long protest when I went there. It was a very long protest. Yes.
Alhamdulillah on that. So yeah, but when you're talking a little bit more of the political side, we're coming back on that discussion of like separating political and religion. I'm telling the more truthful like sentence, separating political from Islam, because they do not accept that a Muslim can have a point of view as others can have, as communist, as socialist, as feminist, as you also we have a big tradition of the social Christians. We say that in French. Like all these people can have a political point of view, and that's really normal. Like you see the world around you and you take a stand. That's our lives. We have values, we have a worldview, but they don't accept that Muslim people have a worldview. And one thing is can explain that also. It's because like from a long time, unfortunately, and that's also linked to our ancestors and the colonial past of France, our families that came in France to have a work and a better life, they were like, that's not our country. So we're like working and making our efforts. And then coming back to our country or like trying to help, but let's be quiet. Let's not like try to make conflict, etc. Now their children were born in France. They're French. Their grandchildren were born in France. We're French. So we don't have to excuse ourselves for anything about taking a stand as anyone could do in this society. So, but like when you do it as in the name of your Islamic beliefs, let's say that's a problem for them, and that should not be like, that's really unfair.
So you touched upon Palestine. Let's talk about political Islam itself, which the French state just simply labels it as Muslim Brotherhood. So where does that come from? Where did they get this idea as such a thing called Muslim Brotherhood? And that needs to be challenged, or that needs to be targeted. They are the ones that need to. So who is actually behind this?
So to give a little bit of context for the people that like need it for the French context. So it was like not 1 year ago, no, maybe like 10 months ago, or not 1 year ago, but like some months ago, a report has been published. So this report was first secret. It was like for the government and it was secret. And then the minister, like it was the Minister of Interior, we say, published it so it can be public. And they took some things of this thing and they published it. And so it's talking about Muslim Brotherhood, and they talk about the notion of entrism. And so they define it like Muslim people, they try to enter into our schools, institutions, hospitals, working, but like they do it for odd ideas. We don't know it. What is interesting is like a few years ago, I told you about the separatism law. And so separatism, this concept is all the Muslim people, they don't want to live with us. They want to separate from us and make a community out of the French community. So you see, like in 2021, we're talking about separatism. And now we're talking about entrism. Do you see that that's a masquerade? Like what I analyze it from it is like every excuse is good to target Muslim people from like living and being a citizen in their country. That's because when you hear about like Muslim Brotherhood and some people that are analyzing it, it's like, yeah, they try to open their business and then they try to be mayors and then they try to be lawyers and like that's what you would wait from a citizen. Everybody is doing this. Everybody. So why, when a Muslim is doing it, it's a problem. So this issue can be also explained by the fact that this Minister of Interior, so his name is Bruno Retailleau, that's what that was. I saw your face when I said that French complicated name, but it's called Bruno Retailleau. He published that he had a very precise agenda when doing it. His role was like to target again Muslim community, create that fear, that terror again around the Muslim community. That is like
exactly. So when you give me a name here, that's what I'm asking you. So you said Bruno Retailleau.
Yes.
Sorry. But then, is he a professor? Is he like, who backs him? Or like, because it's one guy and he's changing the whole system. How much influence does he have? Like, who's funding him? That's what I'm trying to ask you.
Oh, yeah. That's a very complicated question, but I want to just go back on what you said. He's changing the system. He's not changing at all the system. In fact, he's going with the dynamic of that system that is like favorizing, yani helping to create those moments of deep Islamophobia and create that terror. Like, we can talk about Bruno Retailleau. He's not kind of interesting, but like his political experience is very belittled. Let's say he's well known because he was working in a attraction fair. That's what we say. Like you have big games, etc. So this attraction fair is called Le Puy du Fou. It's a well-known attraction fair here because it's like talking about the ancient French people. So when you go to that fair, you see some spectacles, you see some people that they pretend to fight with the swords, like the French ancient time. The creator of that park is called Philippe de Villiers. And so and Bruno Retailleau was working in that park. And Philippe de Villiers, he's a far right man, very extremist.
Yeah, if you're talking about French fighting, it's like bringing the Crusaders. Like what they're trying to do is basically creating a nostalgia for the Crusaders.
Exactly.
Okay.
I was gonna say the word nostalgia, of course, like changing history in the sense that you like to create like it's like what they do with history. They take some facts, they change them so it can fit their agenda. So it's like I can cite you a person, but the thing is interesting is like it's a whole systemic problem. And so Bruno Retailleau made this report public, like to like create fear around Muslim community. And so you see things like, yeah, as I told you, some basic things, and you're like, yeah, so what? Like everybody's doing it, and it's cool that we're in this society and we're living with different communities, and that's okay. Like
the reason why I asked you about this Muslim Brotherhood, because in the UK you had recently a push from the UAE. You saw on GB News perhaps where the I don't remember what position this person had. He came on GB News and he said like Muslim Brotherhood is banned in the UAE and they are a problem. And the anchor was like, yeah, then we need to also tackle with the Muslim Brotherhood. So it is a foreign concept. I mean, Muslim Brotherhood does exist in Egypt and maybe Morocco, and they have different policies. They're very different. So this being, kind of being pushed by the UAE in Britain. So recently he gave this interview like maybe a year ago or like some time ago. So that's why I'm wondering if this is a recent push, even in France. Is this a push from a foreign government? Because here you have a guy who's a far right. How does he know anything about something called Muslim Brotherhood, which is somewhere in Egypt and not even in France? So how does he get that title, and how does he try to like? That's my question. Like, why is it synchronizing with the UAE and the old?
So Yani, it's like very clear. Like you have countries that are allied, right? So of course they exchange some information, etc. But the thing I want to emphasize on, and I think it's important also for French Muslim to have it in mind, is like. It could have been Muslim. It's Muslim Brotherhood today. 5 years ago, it was like separatism, and I don't know what they were talking about, like other groups. 15 years ago, it was something else. Like every excuse is good, and you can take it to again target a community that is the Muslim community that cannot like engage in society and do their things freely. So. I think that's the most important thing we have to have in mind. And so we, as you were saying, like all these, also foreign countries, etc. You can only see what's happening in Palestine and understand that Islamophobia is like very special in France. France is like a special champion on this, but Islamophobia is a worldwide continuum dynamic between Western countries. And we can talk about also the history of the West and colonialism and Islamophobia that was like at the roots of that history. I like to quote that example. We always talk about this date in history when we study it in like mid school or something like that. We talk about 1492. You know the date? What is 1492? Can you answer me?
Is it a flag with what is that? Fraternité, elegant.
No, 1492. It's very old, 15th century. Like it's the discovery of America, right?
Okay,
Christopher Columbus. Yeah. And so we consider it as the like discovering America. So like the beginning of the West, also the genocide of Aboriginal people that were living, in America, so-called. But it's also the same date is like the Christian people the Muslim people that were living in Spain, in Granada, they were also expelled, So, and that is a thing that we don't tell you. And I learned this like very lately in my life. And so you see that the creation, the creation, let's say, in the big beginning of the Western, let's say, geography zone or something like that, is the same date as this very sad event in the Muslim history. So Islamophobia is really at the core and is a pillar, let's say, of that Western country, the Western countries. So of course you can see up until today that Islamophobic continuum between these countries that take any thing that can explain and can justify poorly the persecution of Muslim people. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, what you did remind me was with the new legislations of targeting Muslims and imams and stuff. I had an interview with Khalas Le Cliché some time ago. And that interview really affected me quite a bit because when I was having this interview with this, what's her name? Rania, yes. I could see not just the frustration, but also the sadness. I think in Arabic you would call it huzn, kind of. It was deep.
Strong sadness.
Sorry?
A strong sadness.
Strong sense of sadness, yes. And what she was telling me was there was a abaya ban, there was a hijab ban, and nobody really came, so the protests were not happening. And that I can feel the pain in her. I made it into a short as well. It really affected me because I feel like maybe the Muslims, it's high time for the Muslims to, come into the political space and fight for your rights, because first they went after the women with the hijab, then they went after the women after abaya, and now they're going after imams, and eventually they just want to strip away your Islam. So,
of course,
it feels very sad that why are the Muslims not? I'm going to get in trouble. Why aren't the Muslims fighting for their rights? Let me just put it bluntly.
Yeah, and you can put it that way, and that's the way we're the simple thing to ask from all the communities are doing this. So first I want to talk about the point about huzn. That's a very good thing you mentioned the Arabic term, because yes, that's a very strong sadness, and we see all these Muslims that are living France, and I can really understand that from France because the atmosphere is unbearable. Mm-hmm. And for example, I like to quote them also because I think their job are amazing. I know some students in medics. Let's say medical field, thanks. So to be doctors, but also people working in hospitals, etc. So these people are doing all the other students, 7, 8, 9, 10 years of studying, very intense, very hard. And what is very unknown, unfortunately, is that Islamophobia in that field is very strong. For example, when they're doing their internship in the hospital, so you have to work a little bit as an intern to go through your studies, you cannot wear the veil as a Muslim woman, even when you want to wear some magical things that can help you, hiding your hair. Now they target Muslim women wearing them because they say, oh no, you're trying to wear the veil, and they punish them and they cannot wear that. They are you can hear insults. They are, you have harassment also. So, and these people are having these very difficult studying years. And now, I will finish with that example on that big example. You have to now take an oral exam that it was not taking place before. It's 1 or 2 years. They began this 2 years ago. Before that, you just make your big exam, written exam. If you pass, you pass. You go doing your specialty. Now they also make an oral examination, and a lot of students and people are saying that they put that so they can see before accepting if the woman is wearing a veil or if the man is wearing a huge beard, etc. So I'm only taking this example because you see these people are considered as the best of the French people, the doctors, etc., even in our families, right? Mm-hmm. And still they are feeling this Islamophobia. Even if they represent the elite of that country, they are still feeling it. So I can talk about this. I can talk about all these women that did not do the job and studies they wanted because they had to take off the hijab. I can talk about these men that are harassed also in the company when they work because they are like practicing and having a beard, etc., etc. So yeah, huzun is very hard, very here. But alhamdulillah, what we're seeing is like this generation, and not only the young people. I mean, all the Muslim community now is understanding and having it in its conscious that you can fight for your right, and you can fight against injustice and saying, I'm a Muslim, so what? And this is like very important for, I see a lot of more and more people telling this, I'm a Muslim, so what? I will practice as I want and still I will be in this society. And that's it, because I'm a French citizen like you. And the thing is, Muslim citizens have been like seen as second zone citizens for a lot of time, like were our ancestors in Algeria during colonization. So we have to take into account that repression and like the court and all the repression is very, very hard on Muslim people, and that can be a source of like fear for some of the people in the Muslim community, and that's understandable. And yet, if we don't do, as you clearly said it truthfully, like it's beginning with this, and we're like, okay, it's this, but they won't go any further, and they're going further and further, and like God forbid what can happen in the next decades and all the decades. So we saw in the past and in history that if a community is not trying to fight for its right and saying now it's stopping, now we're living like we want and we're like being what we are, if you don't do that, they will go where you let them go. So alhamdulillah, we see a lot of people that are going on that field. And yeah, you can call it political, and people you can call it political, and people won't even consider it as political. They will be like, yeah, I'm living here, like that's me. I won't change what I am just to please you and the public service. So yeah, alhamdulillah, it's changing
Alhamdulillah.
Progressively.
So, are you optimistic with the pace that it's changing? Of course, I mean, there's too much suppression, but like, do you feel like it's actually going to change perhaps in your lifetime?
Oh, this I don't know. Inshallah.
Inshallah. But I've been looking at the numbers. I mean, at the end of the day, still, like walking through the streets of France, I still see Muslims not boycotting. I still saw with like 5% of your population being Muslim. Yes, the protest rally was long, but still, it could have been more Muslims. There were big numbers, but they were also a mix. So I just feel like, are you optimistic from what you have seen?
So I'm naturally optimistic, so it helps, but not only on that personality level. I think we should be very optimistic, and that optimism must fuel activism and action. If you saw the mindset or situation of Muslim people like 15 or 20 years ago, is clearly not the same as right now. Of course, some people are not boycotting, and even if in our families, you can explain and they would be like, yeah, I understand, but also I love Coca-Cola and Carrefour. Yeah. But like, I mean, that's Islah, right? We're all advancing this life and trying to ameliorate ourselves and the people that are around us. So I think the way to see it, the more efficient way to see it is like, you've understood all these issues. You've saw with your own eyes all the injustice. Your role is like, one, to do everything that you can to fight them, and two, like trying to raise awareness around you and your community. And I think that's like, Islah can mean that also, like to try to ameliorate your community in like trying to fight this injustice we're living. So yeah, I'm very optimistic. You have that can be like in the field of Palestine. You can see people that are also very passionate about decolonialism in general. And so alhamdulillah, at the end of the day, we have the same vision, and inshallah we will fight for our rights. That's the most basic thing. Yeah.
Alhamdulillah. So let's proceed into slowly into the question. The main question I have is, who are CCIF? You mentioned them. or what is this organization? Why France targeted them? And what are the consequences? Because now they have shifted to Belgium and they still face persecution. So can you expand? Who are they? What is their agenda? And so on and so forth.
Yeah. So the CCIF, you could translate it in English, as Group Against Islamophobia in France, so Collectif contre l'Islamophobie en France. And it has been created in 2003, and so they shut it down in 2020. So that organization had one goal. It was to help to accompany Muslims that had problems and were discriminated because they are Muslims in the legal on the legal side, in the legal, to try to find a legal solution to that problem. For example, if a Muslim woman had a problem with her veil, that, for example, some people would forbid her to wear it, and yet she can wear it within the law, this Muslim sister could email CCIF and they could help her in the legal procedures. Yeah, that was the word I was looking for, legal procedures. Mm-hmm. So CCIF was, helping people. We were talking about it, asking for their rights, right? They were only looking at it at a legal procedure. So they helped a lot of Muslim brothers and sisters that had a problem with the law. So in 2020, first you have a big fuss around that group that's, you see, as I told you, it was had 20 years of existence, so a long existence. And you had a man called Gérald Darmanin, who was Minister of Interior, that made all that he could, to shut down this organization. So
he did what? Can you come again? He did what?
He helped to shut it down, to shut down the organization. So when you look at it, if you could summarize the goal of CCIF, it was to help Muslims asking for their rights. And you see a stand as simple as that made such a fuss. We could hear about CCIF everywhere in the media, in the newspaper, and finally they managed to shut it down. So that's, I think, in the psyche or in the collective memory of the Muslim community, that's a very important event, because it was as an organization as noble as that was shut down. And we can also mention Baraka City that was doing a humanitarian work, also shut down. So that was the work they were doing.
So speaking of CCIF, they are still facing prosecutions. And when I try to reach out to some people, they said the organization isn't really functional right now. How is the state preventing them from even expanding their goals?
So, to be honest, I don't know very precisely the case of CCIF, to be very honest with you. But what I can say is, as you said, they had to move to Belgium to exercise because, let's say, Islamophobia is less harder than in France. Mm-hmm. But as long as when you have that historic, yes, let's say when you had all these affairs with the French state, and it's not only on a legal side, it also, as I said, in the medias, all the people that were insulting, targeting, accusing of wrong allegations, CCIF, it's very difficult to come back and try to have to try to help the French Muslim, unfortunately. So that's why up until now, it's very difficult for them. May Allah help.
As if to summarize, this has happened to an individual, Tariq Ramadan. It's as if the same thing is happening, false accusations, and then you, what do you call? You strip off their reputation, and now they struggle to gain back that reputation.
What is I think for the case of Tariq Ramadan, it's more interesting to analyze it not about the case and the accusations, but what was the manifestation of it in the public sphere. So it was it was up until then a very well-known person in the public sphere. not only in the Muslim sphere. Like he was invited in all the medias, the very well-known medias, to express himself and try to defend a position when he was in front of I know that in the collective memory of Muslim children, let's say teenagers, we could see the videos and interviews on YouTube of Tariq Ramadan against like Eric Zemmour, that you probably know, or Rick Nolo. They were like on a well-known TV show, and they were inviting a lot Tariq Ramadan. So you have to analyze it, at the light of, as I said, this Islamophobic systemic state and atmosphere. He was a public figure talking about the Muslim community and telling, like, if you can summarize it, like, fight for your right and for injustice. You can you can agree or disagree with Tariq Ramadan. That's not my point to talk about the person. I'm talking about like the symbol. It's like he was a Muslim man talking in the public sphere to highlight the injustice that this community was facing. And you see, like, I'm not interested about talking about the accusations, but like he was that, and it's very difficult now for a person, and we can talk about all these people that are activists speaking out about Palestine. That's the same procedure. Like, if you want to speak up as a Muslim, it's impossible, and they will try to silence you, have a legal procedure against you, and you're only saying like a genocide is happening in Palestine. Everybody's saying that, but when you're a Muslim person, it's very harder. Yes.
So speaking of CCIE, do you think there is a potential? I mean, since you said you're optimistic, do you feel like there's a potential recreation of a new CCIE type of thing, or does it already exist, or do you think it could happen?
So I would have like two opinions on that. The first one is like, it will exist. Not like, I'm not talking about specifically CCIF or specifically the legal initiative, etc. Initiatives going for the Muslim community, trying to help the Muslim community fighting for its right. It will arrive, inshallah. It will, because, as I told you, people are raising awareness a lot more around this subject, and people are aware a lot more on these issues. So it will happen. If it's not happening right now, it will happen in 5, 10, 15 years, and people will fight for their right. So that would be my first point. Like, when we tend to say, like, if one is being shut down, 10 others will born from that. So that's like the point.
Did that happen? Because when I spoke with Rayan was in the idea of we need more and more organizations. So I understand from the French system, if they target one, they cannot target all of them.
So, like, when you, like, Muslim people, when you fight for your right, you're not fighting for structure or an organization or like a name. You're fighting for your rights as a Muslim, and you're fighting for your whole Muslim community. So if you're doing this like under the flag of this organization or this organization, that's not really the point. We're having a very more large vision. So that's why I would say, like, I'm not pessimistic at all on that. On the other hand, what is interesting with CCIF, and I think we should like talk more about this, analyze, is like the legal approach of Islamophobia is interesting. Of course, the Muslim people need to know more their rights. I know, for example, a sister that she had a problem with her university because she wanted to make the student card, and you can wear your hijab on the student card. You have to have a photo, right? And it's not like the identity card where it's forbidden. You can wear it, but the university forbade her to have a student card with the veil. They were telling her, sorry, it's going, you cannot, it's Laïcité, we're secular, so you must not. And yet in the law, French law, you could. So CCIF told this sister that she has the right, and she can quote, like, mention that article, and it will justify her decision. And in the end, like, I think she got it right, alhamdulillah. So that helps on that side. Nonetheless, Islamophobia is systemic. and the law is a produce of that system. So you can fight on a legal side. And as I said, again, I think it's very important that Muslims know their right on the legal dimension, but you also have to have in mind that law will always, it can be changed. Yani, it's not like not touchable. Yes, you have like deputies, like people that are working for the law. And since this state is like going for Islamophobia, the law can be changed, and okay, so tomorrow we're forbidding the sisters that have a student card, we're forbidding them to wear the veil. What are you gonna do? If you only analyze it on a legal side, you're like, okay, then we cannot do that. And to be frank, like some organization that like CCIF, they were limited on that, and they were telling it like it was transparent, like we will help you as much as we can. If the law says no, if the law is Islamophobic, we cannot do anything. So that's why it's important also to analyze it on all the other dimensions, knowing our rights so we can fight on that side, and also being very aware that that system, is Islamophobic in its roots. Yes.
And you challenge the system. So here's my question. How important do you think, so there's Cage for now, who they help with prosecuted Muslims in France, like Ryan himself. Do you think there are more organizations like Cage that are helping the prosecuted Muslims? So I'm touching upon Elias's case, but also Omar Assoumi, who were recently accused of what were they accused of? I don't remember, but like Intifada. One was Intifada, Elias, for trying to hype up Muslims to what do you call violence, I guess that's what they claimed. And I don't know much about Omar Assoumi. So how important, do we have organizations like that, and how important are they if they don't exist? And can you touch upon these cases, Elias and Omar Assoumi?
Yeah. So these very sad cases. So you don't have so to talk about like the legal dimension again, you don't have like organizations as CCIF, but you have like lawyers that are very well known to be available and going on these kind of cases that touch upon Islamophobia, racism, repression against Palestine activists. So you have like these lawyers that are making a wonderful job to help, the people like Elias and Omar. And Omar, it was again also in the context of Palestinian activism. So like we're finding this solidarity also when you have to talk about the court and about the trials. So these cases again, it's making echo about what we were talking about earlier. It's like you have this criminalization of Palestinian activists only because they are saying there is a genocide going on, and France is a culprit, is complicit of that. So it's very sad. And the thing is, the main figure is the Muslim man, the Muslim visible man, they say. It's not only them, but it's them, like mainly. We can talk about Elias, Omar, we can talk about Anas Kazib and all others that are in the same situation, unfortunately.
So can you tell us about Omar's case? Because I covered Elias's case with Rayan. Can you tell me why was Omar incarcerated or detained?
Yes. So he's not detained, alhamdulillah. So as you know, Omar Assoumi is one of the well-known figures of Urgence Palestine, because Urgence Palestine has this very important and specific type criteria, is like it's led by Palestinian, and Omar is one of these Palestinian like organizing and leading the group. So he has been there's been a raid in his house. I don't remember the date, like maybe 2 weeks ago, something like that, in his house, in front of his wife and children, like policemen coming in the house. And then they arrested him. They kept him, I think for 2 or 3 days in the police station. And then, alhamdulillah, he was freed, but he has a case coming, I think it's and middle of 2026. So we don't know precisely what are the terms yet of the accusations, but what we can guess regarding all the case before him, it's like, as I said, a criminalization of Palestinian support and Palestinian activism. As they will try to find the little thing, because what is not good to their eyes, like a danger for them, is because you're supporting Palestine. That's the basis. And then they will try to find the little thing that's a problem. For example, if we talk about Elias, because like for Omar, we don't know precisely, but for Elias, this word intifada. They made a whole fuss about this word, and we know that when he was saying intifada, it was like a mind revolution, like trying, because when you look at the media, if you only see the dominant media, you're not even thinking there is a genocide going on. You're only thinking, everything began in the 7th of October, or the children are also soldiers in Palestine. Like, your mind is really,
Locked.
Exactly. And if you only listen to those dominant media, your mind is rigged, Yani. And so when you're saying we have to make an intifada, you're saying we have to make a collective mind revolution, saying we cannot bear this any longer and we have to speak up. It's an affair. It's a case of speaking up against injustice with the means that we have in the context that we have. So you see that we'll try to find this little thing. It's in intifada. Yani, honestly, it could have been any other words, any other discourse of Elias or Omar or other men, and they will try to go deep and try to make what they want. It is criminalization of Palestinian activists. So, yeah, that's the context we're dealing with, and that's a very unfair situation we're living.
Yeah, that's sad. So what do you think is the solution in France for the Muslims, particularly? Because on one hand, we do want Muslims to come into activist space, but I also know we're both aware of this, like where Imams discourage people from joining protests. So because for obvious reasons, they say, okay, do you think you can change with protest? Do you think we can with like free mixing? So I like the optimism that you have, and I think I'm also optimistic. But like going forward, since the ceasefire is on, like I haven't seen much protest around the world as it used to be during the genocide. How can... And one of that is necessarily about our own freedom. We are also locked here in Europe to express our Islamic values. So although we are not facing a genocide, we are being repressed. Like, we cannot stand for our own rights, nor can we stand for the rights of the Muslims. So how do we free ourselves here? How essential is that in order to free the shackles of Muslims abroad?
Yeah, you ask. We could write a book answering your question. I will try to do my best, inshallah. So, I would not try to, like, talking about, just to mention that about Imams. It's like, personally, it's complicated for me to talk about this because I very personally think that they are in a very special position, and as I said, a target of the targets. But
Can I You can. As a woman, Muslim women, I mean, this thing is more often said to men, like, are you going to free mix with women in these spaces? As a Muslim woman, it's going to be even harder because you're not just judged by the Imams, but also by the family members. How hard, like, other women might also be judging you, like, why are you mixing with men here? So how, my question is, how would you answer that? Yes.
Yeah. So that issue is a real one. It's true. We don't have to have anxiety about that. Although I want to see it as a good intention, like people are trying to see is it good or bad to participate into demonstrations. And you're right in saying that it's a question in our community. I think we emphasize it more. Like we say, oh, everybody is saying that it's the people, Muslim people are saying we cannot go because it's extremistic. I think it's not that level. I think we're a little bit exaggerating, but.
Oh, I've recently just heard that from an Imam. So
yeah. I truly believe you. I also hear it around me. So yeah, don't worry on that. But like when we ask, like it's not black and white. Imagine you're passing through, you're walking through a street and there's a demonstration. You're walking through the manifestation and then going on. You will still be in the street having men on your left and right, and you will still be if you consider like walking in the street with people around you is premixing, going to the supermarket is premixing, etc. I don't want to make a hukm or anything, but like I know people that go in demonstration and you touch no one and you talk to no one. You just walk. You just participate to make that image of a large group, right? So that's Yani, we have to a point I want to say is like an answer is you must not consider manifestation as an end in itself. Manifestation is a tool that is well known in France because it's in the history of France. Like manifestation, is considered as a political and collective tool, very well known.
Yes.
But manifestation is only one thing of all the things that you can do. If you think that going in your thinking is, I can go to the manifestation, I don't see it like as very, very near free mixing. I will be honest, that's my point of view. You go to the manifestation. If you don't agree with that stand and you don't want to go to the manifestation, you don't feel at ease. It's okay, but you don't have to take it as as an excuse to not work and be active anywhere else. Try to work. I think I would say to that person, try to work on your level. What can you do? Can you talk about boycott around you if you're talking about Palestine? Can you try to raise awareness to our little sisters and little brothers about what is Islamophobia, etc., etc.? Can you read books and then talk about these books on your social medias or anything, even in your family? So I think that's what I wanted to say earlier. Maybe I was not very clear, but I don't want people to make a case about demonstration. Like, is it forbidden? Like, not forbidden? It's first in, if we're talking about hukm, it's not black and white as a lot of things, And when you have your position, try to go on with you want to do it, then do it. You don't want to do it, do another thing. That would be the thing I want to say.
So you touched on a very important thing, raising awareness. That's where I'm going to go into. The genocide in Gaza has been, not just Gaza, I would rather say the entire Middle East, the Levant region rather, particularly, has been happening since colonialism ever started. And it's continuing. They have recently bombed Syria. They've bombed Iraq. The genocide has been happening, and they want to bomb Iran right now. So It's been happening since the time of colonial period, and now it's particularly focused on the Levant region.
Yeah.
And the people are aware about this whole genocide because people spoke about it, because people engaged and shared videos. And so you and I have both noticed that our social media is flooded with different content right now. So how important, since the ceasefire, do you think do you feel like people need to focus again? Do we need to? How can we bring back the focus into Palestine right now?
So to answer the first point, to mention it. So, like we said, unfortunately and very sadly, that's the first genocide we're having in 4K, 1080p on your phone, right? Everywhere in the social media. We were talking about dominant media before, right? Mm-hmm. Now you cannot even hide it. Even if you you just open, Instagram, something like that, and you see these videos of men, women, and children being massacred and with fires and with weapons, etc. So the awareness has been been raised because like you had this activist group talking about also against the false views, saying it has begun in the 7th of October, forgetting all the history of that situation. So the raising of awareness came, and sadly, by itself, by the situation itself, because it was that intense and that a huge thing, and also because you had the work of like activists and Muslim activists talking about it. So now with the ceasefire, of course, we have to still talk about it, because like even, for example, Perspectives Musulmanes and also Urgence Palestine and also other groups were saying when the ceasefire happened, we were happy. Alhamdulillah. Of course, if the Palestinian people are happy, we are happy. That's normal. And yet we were still saying like at the end of for example, discourse, nevertheless, be careful, because that's not what we're aiming for. We're not aiming for ceasefire and only opening the borders so they can bring, for example, the humanitarian aid. We're not at all only aiming that. We're aiming for the liberation, the entire liberation of Palestine and the Palestinian population. So I think it's, as you said, it's very important to keep up that stand and to talk about it. And still raising awareness on this issue, that we are not stopping until the Palestinians.
How do we keep that momentum? That's my question.
Yes, but for example, there is a demonstration this Saturday. We can
Can you go back to demonstrations?
I can make the ads or now, but I'm very serious. Urgence Palestine is organizing a demonstration this Saturday, and also like all the big events like during a whole weekend, for example, in 2 weeks in Paris.
But as individuals, like especially even with student organizations, Muslim student organizations, they have the ability to raise awareness. So it doesn't have to be demonstrations, as you said, rightfully. So how can we, right now, we have this briefing space. So how can we as Muslims organize, like you are Perspectives Musulmanes, joining?
Not only me, but
yes, of course. But like you have that leverage to bring student organization from Strasbourg or University, from Paris University, or from Marseille University, and to join and to create a momentum awareness, because a lot of times it's usually the students, the next generation, that shapes the freedom. So how, or what strategies, who can strategize rather, who should start strategizing in your opinion, and how do we strategize? Yes.
I'm very happy you've mentioned the students, because that's a subject that is very dear to me, because indeed I think that a lot of the protests and the dynamics, Lani, were born onto the campus, right? We saw, for example, I remember when you had all that movement in Colombia and all the university, Harvard, also in America. We saw like the effects in France, and I remember some schools and some universities that were making actions, alhamdulillah. So I want to say first, you would say maybe I'm repeating myself, but I really want to emphasize it so people can have this in mind, because we're talking about people and lives. The repression is hard, very hard. I know, for example, a school, I think it was Sciences Po. So there's a school called Sciences Po. Maybe you know it. It's political sciences, basically. It's considered as one of the most important schools. They say grandes écoles. It's like big universities in France, big and well known. And so you had some students that were like, they forbade them to go to school. And some of them also, they were expelled from the school. So it's very, we say the repression is hard generally. For the students, it's also all the more hard, because we're talking about people that are in general in a precarious situation. And like the student life, you know, when you're a student, like your life is studies. So it's very hard also to try kind of sacrifice it. But I can say that alhamdulillah, there is a lot of things going on to, as you said, make this movement still raising awareness, etc. For example, you had like some weeks ago, I think, some conferences and also some events organized by student organization. And I also want to ask, before I forget, it's very interesting you said that, because like this last 2-3 weeks, we had a movement of repression against events organized by students very hard. For example, you had a conference organized by the Collège de France. It's not a university per se, but like it's a big scholar institution. You have a lot of scientists and professors, and they make courses for students, but also like adults that go there. It's very, very well known, very prestigious. They wanted to organize a conference on Palestine. It was organized by Henry Lawrence, there is a very well-known historian, very well-known in his field. And do you know him?
No, unfortunately, no.
But yes, he's very well known. They forbade these events to happen in the Collège de France, who is like a very well known, as I said, building in the very well known suburb, on the contrary, the center of Paris. They forbade it, and then they still kept it, but like on another place in Paris, making it complicated. Also in Nanterre, it's a city in the suburb of Paris. You had a group called EMF. It's Muslim students of France, Étudiants Musulmans de France. They wanted to make a conference on Palestine with it was other organizations, external organizations. It was forbidden, like they were stopped and it was shut down. And also, again, other events like this last month, it was very hard, and students were speaking up about it. So I just wanted,
Sorry.
No, go on. Sorry.
This is when students are having these issues. To collaborate with other students, with organizations, in order to form a bigger coalition or union. That's why I asked you, who do you think should lead the movement? Like an imam, or, I mean, of course, imams are being targeted, an activist. Who do you think, being strategic, who do you think should be in a place where we collectively come together? And of course, we're having trouble with the spaces, the university spaces.
Yes.
So now, how can we work around it? And I mean, this deen is actually, we have an imam, right, usually. So is there a strategy that you guys might have, or you're thinking about it? Like, maybe you can just explore. So that's why I'm asking you.
Yeah.
Yes, we are having this trouble. Yes.
Yes. You're right about mentioning that. So what we see is like the students that are, for example, if we talk about Palestine, because like that's our subject, you can see they do their thing on the campus, for example, and that's a thing they know well. For example, they will put a table within the campus.
Not just Palestine. It can also be about Islamophobia. I mean,
of course, yes. We were talking about Palestine. That's why. But also, of course, Islamophobia, when they make conference on that, exactly. But they do this, and they know that's their field of expertise, let's say, talking about to students, etc. But I agree with you on saying that you have to talk, to be in exchange and be a near organization that speak up about Islamophobia on a more general basis. From them, they can like learn and collaborate, etc. So of course, we see, for example, I talk about what I know, Perspectives Musulmanes is working actively with students, and not only in Paris, to that extent, to try to help them and like give them the good tools, talking about Islamophobia, for example, and like working together, because you're working for the students, but in the end, you're working for the Muslim community. So
this is what I wanted for my YouTube clip, let's say, to promote yourself. What are the good works that you do? So you're bringing professors or intellects where students can come and join your organization and learn from these professors, so you can connect. Yes. So you are that middleman. So this is what I wanted, actually. So if you can elaborate a bit on your works, I would really appreciate.
Yes, so we are trying with Perspectives Musulmanes to try to work with all the spheres, let's say, and the people that want to fight this Islamophobia and fight for their right. Mm-hmm. For example, we were working currently with students that in their field are facing Islamophobia, and we're trying like to raise awareness, to talk about what is Islamophobia, how could we fight it, etc. Mm-hmm. We're also making a lot of conferences, not only with people in France, like on the field. It can be Imams, as you said. It can be like all other organizations working on Islamophobia, etc. It's also, we made a big conference, like it was in last May, where we had like a lot of, we had sisters from England, from I wanted to say UK, also from Austria. There was there were the sister of Cage that you know. Mm-hmm. We had a Dr. Hatem Bezian, so like a professor from abroad.
I attended it, yes.
Oh, alhamdulillah, nice. So we're trying to make this connection, because it's only collectively that we will be able to go on and try to work together.
And so, speaking on Hatem's, so I have attended only one, Professor Hatem's lecture, and it was so something I wanted to tell the public as well. It was a very cramped up space, and there were a lot of people. It was a very cramped up space, and alhamdulillah, whoever gave that, may Allah bless that person or that organization to give that space. How can people reach out to you if they have that communal space where they can provide you? Because we're concluding, how can people reach out to you? Because you're doing more works to help the Muslims. How can people reach out to you to contribute their communal space, or financially, or anything? So would you like to share your organizations, which organizations contact, because you're not just Perspectives Musulmanes, you have other organizations. So would you like to share some, or contacts, how to reach out to all of them? Yes.
Yes. So thank you for this opportunity. So we were obviously on Instagram, so Perspectives Musulmanes, also on Facebook and Twitter, and like we have our DMs open to any contribution. Of course, you talked about the space. That's a very big issue. Unfortunately, you have some very prestigious people and some very interesting Allahumma barik people that come, and that's against our will. Of course, we try to welcome them with a big space, for example, and it's very difficult because, as we said, when we're talking Islam and engaging society, that's difficult, and like people are being afraid. Yeah. So I would say Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Also follow Urgence Palestine on Instagram, and also they're everywhere. I think Facebook, Twitter.
I can testify as an outsider. The room was cramped, and there was hardly any place, and we were sweating. We were sweating.
Yes.
There was no
I was not there, but I saw the photos, and I guessed.
It was so cramped up, and I really think you guys need that contribution from the community to have some more bigger space, inshallah.
Inshallah, yes. So
so far, Perspectives Musulmanes people can reach out to you, and I'll put it in the description. Do you have any concluding words?
Alhamdulillah, ala kulli hal. No, thank you. I would say thank you very much for that opportunity, and we're trying to do our best for the best, inshallah. Yeah.
Alhamdulillah. May Allah bless your works, and jazakallah khair for joining us.
Ameen wa yak.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.